The crowd stood frozen, their breaths caught in their throats. No one dared to move. No one dared to even breathe. Before them stood a fully grown lion, its powerful frame tense, golden eyes locked onto the man who had once raised it. The silence was suffocating. At any second, the unimaginable could happen. But to understand how they reached this moment, you need to know the full story. Years earlier, Liam had stumbled upon a helpless lion cub abandoned in the wild. The tiny creature was weak, barely clinging to life, a fragile bundle of fur, too, young to survive on its own. Liam knew the risks of taking in a wild animal, but he couldn't walk away. He named the cub Cairo and raised him like family. In the beginning, Cairo was no different than a playful kitten. He would pounce on Liam's shoes, nuzzle into his arms, and follow him everywhere like a loyal shadow. The bond they shared was unbreakable. But as weeks turned into months, Cairo grew. His playful nips became sharper, his paws heavier. The line between pet and predator began to blur. By the time Cairo was a year old, Liam could no longer deny what he'd been avoiding. Keeping Cairo in captivity wasn't fair. The lion needed the wild, the freedom he was born for. With a heavy heart, Liam arranged for Cairo to be relocated to a massive wildlife reserve, a sanctuary where he could live as he was meant to, free. The day of their farewell was unbearable. Cairo paced restlessly, sensing something was wrong. When the truck arrived, Liam knelt down, pressing his forehead against the lion's. "You're going to be okay, buddy," he whispered. Cairo let out a low, uncertain rumble, a sound somewhere between fear and trust, before stepping into the cage. And just like that, he was gone. Years passed. Liam never returned, convincing himself it was for the best. Cairo needed to forget him, to fully embrace the life he was meant for. But no matter how hard he tried, Liam could never forget Cairo. Then, one day, out of the blue, Liam received a phone call. "Liam, I think you need to see something." The voice on the line belonged to one of the reserve staff. There was something in their tone, something that sent chills down his spine. Without hesitation, Liam packed his bags and boarded the first flight out. When he arrived, the reserve workers met him with uneasy expressions. "He remembers you," one of them said quietly. "But we're not sure if that's a good thing." Liam's heart twisted. What did that mean? They led him to the enclosure where Cairo lived. The gate creaked open, and from the shadows of the tall grass, the lion emerged. He was unrecognizable, no longer the small cub Liam had raised, but a massive, powerful creature. His golden mane was thick and wild, his muscles rippling beneath his tawny coat. His amber eyes locked onto Liam with an intensity that made everyone around them tense. "Be careful," one of the staff whispered. "He's not the same animal you knew." But Liam barely heard them. His entire focus was on Cairo. Slowly, he stepped forward, his heart pounding in his chest. The lion's muscles coiled, each step calculated, a predator sizing up its prey. For one terrifying moment, Liam wondered if Cairo would attack him. The reserve staff gripped their tranquilizer guns, ready for the worst. Then, without warning, Cairo lunged. Gasps filled the air. Liam braced himself, but the attack never came. Instead, the massive lion crashed into him, knocking him to the ground. Not out of aggression, but out of pure, unfiltered joy. Cairo's huge paws pinned Liam down, his head pressing into his chest as a deep, rumbling purr echoed through his body. Liam lay frozen, unable to breathe, not from fear, but from disbelief. The same lion everyone had warned him about was acting like the same playful cub he had once raised. The workers stood in stunned silence as Cairo nuzzled against Liam, his tail flicking with excitement. He never lets anyone get close to him, one of the staff whispered. This isn't normal. But Liam knew the truth. This wasn't just an animal remembering his caretaker. This was something deeper, a bond that time and distance had never broken, yet something still felt off. Liam sat up slowly, his hands buried in Cairo's thick mane. The lion's body was tense, his golden eyes scanning the enclosure. The other lions stayed back, watching, intently. It was then Liam noticed Cairo wasn't just showing affection, he was guarding him. In the distance, hidden between the trees, another lion lurked, larger than Cairo with deep scars slashed across its face, the dominant male of the reserve. Its eyes were locked onto them, its muscles coiled like a spring ready to strike. Cairo let out a low, warning growl, a sound that made the other lion hesitate. The staff whispered urgently for Liam to back away, but he couldn't. If he moved, he could trigger the fight. If he stayed, he was putting Cairo in danger. The dominant lion took a slow step forward, its golden eyes fixed on Liam. Cairo shifted, placing his massive body between Liam and the threat. His growls grew louder, not out of aggression, but out of protection. Time stood still. Then, in an instant, the dominant lion let out a thunderous roar. The staff gripped their rifles, but Cairo lunged first, not at the dominant male, but at Liam. With one powerful swipe, Cairo knocked him to the ground, shielding him beneath his massive frame. Dust filled the air. The dominant lion froze, confused by the strange display, a wild lion protecting a human. Finally, the dominant male backed away, letting out a low rumble of acknowledgement before disappearing into the tall grass. The tension evaporated, and the staff exhaled all at once. Liam lay on the ground, his heart still hammering in his chest. Cairo's golden eyes met his, and in that moment, Liam understood. Cairo hadn't just remembered him, he had protected him. Slowly, Cairo stepped back, his massive frame retreating into the wild. He didn't need words. His actions had said everything. This was his world now. Liam had no place in it. And yet, the bond they shared had endured. Something deeper than instinct. Something no laws of nature could break. As Liam left the reserve, he glanced back one last time. Cairo was gone from sight, but Liam knew he was still out there. Wild, free, some. Bonds don't need words. Some bonds never break.